All right, today I'm going to be showing you how to replace a CV boot on a ATV. Now this particular model is going to be the 2011 Yamaha Grizzly 550. 700s are going to be identical to this, and a lot of the ATV models are. So I'm just going to go through that process. Now we're going to jack up the rear end. First thing you're going to do is pull this tire off. Now you can see I've got a whole lot of plastic removed off this four-wheeler, and there is no reason to have all that plastic removed to do this particular process. Now, it is important though when you see a CV boot ripped to immediately remove that axle and replace that CV boot. And it's crucial to do that because anytime you get water in those boots, those joints wear out to get sand and debris in there, and you will end up needing to replace that entire axle, or at least that joint. A boot is $15 to $25, and so it's a whole lot cheaper to do that as opposed to waiting and replacing the axle. Now, if you don't have the know-how, then it is a whole lot easier just to replace that axle. But I'll show you how to replace that boot at this time, so now you won't have to replace that entire axle. Okay, I've got the rim pulled off now. The next thing I'm going to do is grab an 1 1/16 socket, and these are going to be different depending on socket sizes across the board are going to be different on different ATVs, but on this particular model it's an 1 1/16. And then this model has the brake caliper on this side. Some of them don't have brake calipers on the wheel itself. Some of them are in the axle if it's a straight axle. And again, all these procedures are going to be pretty close to the same, just a couple different sizes of nuts. These can be a little bit challenging to get your impact into, but I like to do this as opposed to a wrench, just a lot quicker. And you can do it with just your wrench. Just sometimes it takes a little bit longer. All right, two 12mm bolts to remove this caliper off of here. We're able to get that caliper out of the way. You don't have to remove it any farther than that, and you definitely don't want to remove the banjo bolt there. You also don't want to hit the brakes at this point. Okay, we've got our hub. We've already pulled that larger nut off of there. We're going to be able to pull just our hub off at this time. Next is the knuckle. Some people call it the spindle. It generally has bolts that run all the way through it. This model has 17mm and a 14mm on this side. We don't have to remove the brake cover or the disc cover, because that'll all come off with that knuckle. This is how you'd replace bearings as well. I'm going to grab a rubber mallet, tap those bolts through. We've got grease certs on this model, so you want to make sure and do that when you go back together there. Those bolts will come out. Make sure you keep bolts. I like to keep bolts and nuts whenever they're a set. Keep those together. And now those hubs, or this knuckle, is ready to come off of here. And there's spacers or washers on either side, so make sure those stay in place. Now, a lot of times these wheel bearings here, if they are going bad, a lot of times they'll seize onto this axle. So at this point, if that is the case, you're probably going to pull the axle out as well. You can take and tap. You want to make sure you use a plastic mallet or a rubber mallet to tap on that axle. You do not want to damage those threads. And we've got the knuckle off there. And I'm just going to set this up here because there's no reason to dig any farther. You just need to get that away from this. I like to be able to push up on this A-arm so you can get a straight pull out of that axle. So our caliper is just going to flop around there. And then I like to push all the way in and then you can just jerk it out like that. It's got a snap ring in here that centers itself, and it generally takes 2 or 3 times of pulling before that snap ring will center completely, line up, and then you pull and that pushes that snap ring in at that time. You can see there we've got our boot rip there, and it's in the beginning stages. You can feel it's still in great condition, and so we're ready to put a new boot on that. Now, being as it's the outside, makes it a little bit more difficult. So I'll show you that process now. Straps like